Redshift here, doing my part to shift perceptions out of the pink and into the red. Men act like walking away is the solution. This is going to deal with government, right? No, no. How is this going to deal with government? Just walking away is a form of fighting the way that women fight. That's how women fight. But this is not fighting in an active way. It's in a caving, submissive kind of way. That's what kind of fighting it is, right? Like, this is not fighting at all. This is just capitulation. You have to remember that the women's way of fighting is a submissive way of fighting, and that women do not rule the world. It's still the alpha males, the psychotic, rich assholes, the men who rule the world. Women may have more power than men these days, more than the 80 or 99% of men, but the top 1%, the ones who really rule, the top 1%, the ones who really rule the world, they're men. And the female way of fighting, it only works as long as men are pussies, or it has a limited effectiveness even when men are not pussies, manipulation and sweetness and caving and all this kind of thing, right? Like, it's not some kind of ultimate power unless you have higher IQs. Then you can be extremely effective at manipulating, right? But of course, what's women's manipulation ability built on, right? It's built on their attractiveness and their sex appeal. And men are not as attractive as women are because, number one, men don't have this masculine strength they did in the past, and number two, men don't have the beauty that women have, and even if they did, it's in a masculine way, it's not as effective because women don't have the sex drive that men have. So you can't deal with the government like women do because men are men. They're not as desirable as women in a way like that, so men can't manipulate as well like that. And plus, the top guys typically have higher IQs than the average guy does. So again, my commune solution with using sperm bank sperm to raise the average IQ of everyone in the commune after a few generations, raise the whole next generation's IQ, raising kids that aren't your own along with some kids that are your own, genetically speaking, so that your biological kids can marry one of the other guys' sperm bank sperm kids, and the other guys' biological kids can marry your sperm bank sperm kids, so that you can all have grandkids that have much, much higher IQs. Or like, this is the only way to fight the government, because the only way, the female way of fighting, the Jewish way of fighting manipulation, it only works if you have a higher IQ. You see? And women can only do it without higher IQs because, like I said, their sex appeal, right? Men's need for sex, but the top guys get tons of sex, so you can't use that against them. And plus, we're men, not women. So this female way of fighting, it's only fitting for women, and it's a limited power. It's not an absolute power, and the absolute power it has, such as the Jewish way of fighting like that, is dependent on higher IQ. So again, you got to use sperm bank sperm and do the whole communes thing, the whole eugenics thing. That's the only way to fight without fighting. This whole just caving, this whole just like, we're going to ignore the problem, this whole just, we're just not going to fight and that's going to be our way of fighting, like MGTOW, this is not an effective way of fighting. This isn't fighting at all. It's just capitulation. I mean, you could say it's fighting in a sense, but it's not very effective, especially considering that when you just give in to the enemy and let them have whatever they want, they win. And especially if you have no line that you're not going to draw, then they just endlessly win. So when the government decides to put everybody in camps and start killing people by the tens of millions or the hundreds of millions, are you going to go along with that too? You're going to still fight by not fighting? I mean, it's totally insane, because if you just go along with the enemy endlessly, then the enemy endlessly wins, and then there's no way to win. At best, by not fighting and not bothering to use eugenics either, and not having a line, then the enemy just, and if you have a line, then the enemy tries to push you to cross that line. What's your only recourse? Violence. So why not use violence in the beginning then? And if you just let the enemy endlessly win, and if you have no line, then it's like the only way you can win by that is by the elites fucking up so badly, they make the whole human race go extinct, and then you win by everybody going extinct, you and the enemy. But that's not really a win, is it? I mean, come on now, right? I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous to act like walking away is going to solve the problem, at least walking away in the MGTOW sense, right? Not bothering to walk away far enough, like forming eugenic communes, and not bothering to fight either. I mean, it's preposterous. Walking away can't solve the problem on its own. At least not the MGTOW walking away. At least not the present MGTOW form of walking away. Walking away by going MGTOW assumes that the government has some kind of moral line that it won't cross. Forget your line. What about the government's line? Does it even have one? No, it doesn't. Governments have committed mass genocide. Nothing will, there's no line, no moral line the government won't cross. Government is pure evil. And history proves that. So walking away is a solution. Yeah, I kind of understand the logic behind it, but it's flawed. It assumes that the government has some kind of line that it won't cross. Like the government has some kind of morality or something, but the government has no morality. And there is no line that it won't cross. The government will do the most horrific things imaginable. It has done the most horrific things imaginable. Our government, Mao, Stalin, Idi Amin, the government is the source of all the greatest, so I shouldn't have said I mean right after Idi Amin, but our government, Stalin, Mao, Idi Amin, that genocidal dictator. The government is the source of all the greatest horrors in human history, either dictatorship, kingship, democracy, whatever. It doesn't matter what form this authority or hierarchy or authoritarian power, whatever you want to call it, no matter what form it takes, it's able to force other people to do things against their will, and that has been something that has been at the root of all the horrific things that have happened throughout all of human history. There's no line the government won't cross, especially if you enable it to cross that line, if you let it get away with crossing that line by not fighting back against it. You see, so if MGTOW men really believe in walking away, if they really believe in non-action as a way of fighting, then why don't they all just be pacifists? But no, they're not philosophically pacifists. And if they're pacifists, why don't they become anarcho-capitalists? Because if they're pacifists, then they should believe in the validity of then they should not believe in the validity of violence at all, in which case, why believe in the validity of violence when government does it? That's insane, and it's totally hypocritical. It goes against your own philosophical position of being a pacifist. But if you think the government is justified in using violence, then why don't you think the people are justified in using violence against the government when the government is evil? And if you do think the people are justified in using violence against the government, then why do you hold this non-active position of MGTOW, as if that's going to deal with the government? Non-action extends to multiple realms, you know what I mean? And it doesn't just extend to walking away from women and thinking that that will deal with the government, or not fighting the government is your way of fighting the government, because if that's true, why not just be a pacifist? Because pacifism is non-action incarnate. Well, actually, Buddhist monkhood and Taoist monkhood is non-action incarnate. Sitting and facing a wall is non-action incarnate, like Bodhidharma did, and like Taoist monks kind of do. They don't sit and face a wall, but they meditate. They do zhang or sitting meditation for hours. But pacifism is even more following the principle of non-action, or just as much in a sense. If the principle of non-action works, like MGTOW seems to think it does, then why not be pacifists? But you see how the whole thing is a hypocritical stance. You see how it contradicts itself because of what I said earlier. But the government has no line it won't cross, like I said before. But if the government has no line it won't cross, then you're either obligated to walk away farther and let everybody else sort of support you in a sense because the government's not going to object to you walking away and forming communes if it's only a few people doing it. Like, 0.1% of the population or 1% of the population or something. But if it starts to be like, 20, 30, 40% of the population walking away and forming communes, the government's going to care and the government probably won't tolerate it. Or then again, maybe if enough of them are willing to defend their commune with massive violence, then the government won't have any choice. So yeah, why not form communes, right? But if you form communes and you're assuming they're going to be left alone because hardly any people are going to do it, well, that's the other people's fault that they're not doing it too. You know what I mean? But as far as the government having no line, if you walk away, sure, it doesn't have any line, but it's not going to mess with you if you walk away by forming your own commune, because there's so few of you doing it, the government's not going to care, because it's not going to stop the government's plans, and it's not going to stop, its tax revenue and all the rest of it. As long as you pay your taxes, they're not going to care. They got everybody else enslaved, the other 99.9999% of the population enslaved, so I don't care if a few thousand people or a few tens of thousands of people walk away, by forming communes. But if the government has no line, you can do that, right? But if the government does have a line it won't cross morally, like a lot of people seem to think, which also undermines the MGTOW thing, Because if the government does have a line that it won't cross, then do what I said before in a previous video. Absolute resistance, as Silly Sad called it, right? Just don't cooperate with the government at all. Like when they try to arrest you, don't even pull your feet into the car. Make them push your feet into the car and then gently close the door. You know what I mean? See what a pain it would be? And he said, well, no, they'll just break your legs. Well, then you're just proving that the government has no line and that walking away is no solution, because then the government will just do whatever it takes to enslave you in any way, shape, or form, including kill tens of millions of people, including you. You know what I mean? And if the government really is that evil, then isn't that all the more reason to use violence and make a channel and encourage everybody else to use violence to overthrow the government? You see? So it's a situation where it's like, either the government has a line that it won't cross, in which case you should do that absolute resistance that I talked about, not even walk to the car when they arrest you, not even pull in your feet when they put you in the car, not even, keep your face still, like scrunch up your face when they try to take the mug shot so they can't even recognize you, you know what I mean? Like, just do refuse to work in prison, do every little thing to refuse to cooperate with the government, you know what I mean? Because if the government has a line that it won't cross, then that can be really effective. But if the government has no line that it won't cross, then they'll just kill you by the tens of millions coming up here. Like the Georgia Guidestones implied that they want to. They said they want to get the population down to 500 million. Nothing has lowered the population of the world so far. It just keeps going up. Not even war, not even plagues. The world population just keeps going up. So, really mass extermination is the only way they could accomplish it, probably. Either, probably not through death camps, though, probably through some kind of virus they give themselves the cure for. But you see what I mean? It's like, if the government has no line, then you are pretty much obligated to fight it any way you can, and fight it as radically as you can, and or walk away as much as you possibly can, and do, eugenic breeding, so that you can eventually overtake the government by putting all your people from the commune into government posts because of their super high IQs, and subversive code to, marginalize the government out of existence. And you're obligated to fight in whatever way possible, in every possible way, if the government has no line. And if the government does have a line, you should be resisting in every possible way by not cooperating in every possible way, and encouraging everybody to do the same. And then the government won't go too far. They won't break your legs, or they won't spray you with pepper spray just because you're sitting in a peaceful, a peaceful protest. Like, the government won't, do anything really bad to you because they don't want the bad press, or because the government has a conscience, or whatever. Either way, you should not be doing what MGTOW is doing and just walking away, but still continuing to pay your taxes, still not advocate for the overthrow of government, still act like the tyranny is going to decrease once gynocentrism decreases, as if there can't be way worse tyranny that, has nothing to do with gynocentrism. As if they couldn't repeal all the misandric laws and yet still enslave other people in other ways, like with artificial intelligence and predictive algorithms and surveilling you in every possible way, like the NSA is doing. I mean, come on now. Either way, MGTOW is fucking up, So, like I said, but if you're not offering any resistance to the government, then you're just encouraging the government to be even more evil because they can get away with it. You see what I'm saying? If we're going to do nothing and just let the government tax us to the tune of, 99% of our wealth being stolen through taxation, which, if we're just going to cooperate endlessly, that's what they will do. They'll eventually raise the taxes up to, 20%, 50%, 70%, 90%, 99%. Eventually they'll do that. If we offered no resistance, then the government would do that. I mean, come on now. If we allowed the government to kill us by the tens of millions over a period of like 5 years, wipe out 50 or 100 million people, if we allowed the government to do that, then the government would absolutely do that. Why wouldn't it? It's to the government's advantage to do that, because most people have low IQs and bad memories and no charm and bad looks. Why wouldn't the government do that? The government would be like, it's eugenic, it's good for humanity, it'll pay dividends for humanity down the line if we wipe out 100 million people in America today. Of course, they won't say that to the public, but they'll say that to themselves, to morally justify it to themselves. And then they do it, because these people have no conscience. I mean, they started the Iraq War over money. They killed 1 to 2 million people over money. Straight up. And not even money we were entitled to, such as if we'd been robbed and were trying to get our stolen money back. No, we were instead fighting to reinstitute an unfair system that allows us to rob the world. A system called the petrodollar. We were fighting to keep an unfair system going and to force it back on a country that had already rejected it. or at least a leader of that country. Saddam Hussein had rejected the petrodollar. So yeah, the government can and will absolutely kill us by the tens or by the millions or the tens of millions and even the hundreds of millions. You know, they could wipe out 250 million people in America. We're a country of 325 million people or thereabouts. They could easily kill 250 million people, maybe even 300 million people, and it would be beneficial for the US. Keep the high IQ people, the good memory people, the good-looking people, the healthy people, the charming people, keep all the useful people and kill everybody else. How would that be bad for the country? I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that from their perspective, it makes sense to do such genocidal actions. So if we're just going to passively stand by and let them do whatever they want because they think that non-action is some kind of way of fighting them, then they'll absolutely do that. And if we keep letting them get away with it, then they'll keep doing it. And they'll just kill more and more and more of us. You know, it was right there in that movie, Hobbs and Shaw. You know what I mean? It was right there in that movie about a virus is going to wipe out most of humanity, a virus intentionally engineered to do so. I mean, didn't I say that ahead of time before that movie came out? And if I didn't even say it before it came out, I said it before I saw that movie, you know? And then it came out on video and I saw it and I was like, wow. Yeah, see, they're warning us right there in the movies that that's what they're going to do. And people are just ignoring it, you know? It's not hard to predict what they're going to do. They're going to absolutely do that. They're going to wipe us out with a virus and just save a small percentage of us. And I'm sure they could engineer the virus to engineer certain gene to, you know, like recognize the genes in high IQ people so that the virus only kills stupid people, you know? They wouldn't even have to give everybody a vaccine to prevent them from dying once the virus is released. Just have the virus target everybody who doesn't have genes that are the indicators of high IQ. And once the IQ requirement for a middle-class job is even higher, the elites will have even more incentive to wipe us out by the hundreds of millions in America and by the billions worldwide. So it's going to get really fucking ugly. And so I hope I've proven here that doing nothing is not an effective means of fighting. It's self-contradictory. It just allows the elites to get as psychotic as they want to be, and they will. Like I said, doing non-action as a form of fighting assumes the enemy has some line that they're not willing to cross. Like they have some kind of humanity. But we're talking about the Illuminati here. We're talking about Satanists who rape children, who rape, 10, 12-year-old girls, who murder people by the millions, who have publicly stated that they want to get the world population down to 500 million. These people are pure evil. They have no line that they won't cross. No line they won't cross. And they'll probably have no problem justifying it to themselves by telling themselves that it's eugenic to murder most of the population and that the sheeple were warned ahead of time and they didn't care and they were lazy and decadent and they therefore deserved the annihilation they received. Because they're psychopaths, they will have no problem justifying it to themselves. And they'll tell themselves that because of overpopulation, it's good for the planet that they killed all these people. Necessary even. So yeah, we're going to be wiped out in astronomically huge numbers if we try to use the strategy of non-fighting to defeat the elites. Just because they've always won throughout history, or almost always, because we fought and seemed to win, but it was only a temporary victory, just because that seems to be the case, that doesn't mean it wouldn't have been even worse if we had used the strategy of non-action to fight the elites. Right? People say, well, they tricked us into World War II and fighting on the bad guys' side. They tricked us into World War I fighting on the bad guys' side. They tricked us into Iraq to fight for the side of evil. Right? They just keep doing that. They trick us into wars that are fought for the evil side's benefit, and then evil wins because it tricks good into working for it. You see, so that's what they say. So therefore, we shouldn't fight the enemy, right? No, you don't know if it would have been way, way worse if we had used the strategy of non-action. Might have been even worse. Perhaps using the non-action strategy would have resulted in even worse effects. Plus, not fighting, how does that even work when soon all the military is going to be made up of robots and stuff, drones that are flown by algorithms and stuff. They won't even need people in the military soon, unless they're, coders or something, right? So considering this, how are you going to stop war by just not fighting, And perhaps the non-action strategy would have resulted in worse effects even in the past, and even if not, it probably will in the future. And look at the Amish. How have they changed things for the better? How have the hippies changed things for the better? How did the people who refused to fight when the government took away gold and silver in the 30s, how did they accomplish anything good by doing nothing? The strategy of non-action does not work. It's a good strategy for self-improvement, but it doesn't reduce tyranny. And again, even non-action as a strategy for self-improvement only works if you're meditating and stuff, because that's the true non-action. sitting and facing a wall, or sitting and standing and doing zhuang, or doing some kind of meditation. Right? This is the only way non-action truly finds its real fruition, its real path, its real method, and its real good effects. Right? But only on a personal level again. Now, I suppose if a lot of people did it and more people did it, then you could, make everybody wiser and hold the government accountable. But, everybody knows about meditation and most people aren't doing it. And how often have I recommended meditation? And I'm sure most of my subscribers probably don't do it. How many times have I told them to make a channel, start making regular videos, a 5-minute video once a week? Do they do that? Hardly any of them. Hardly any. So, you can't look at it from an individual standpoint. You have to look at it from a society-wide standpoint. And since most of these people are pussies, they're not willing to put in the effort it takes to meditate. They're not willing to look at the harsh truth about women and discover MGTOW and female nature. They're not willing to do the hard stuff that it takes. They're sure as hell not willing to risk their lives in a Revolutionary War, so they're not the enemy, because they're too cowardly. They'll just stand on the sidelines. All we got to do is start a war and win. Or form eugenic communes and defeat the enemy that way. But that's not non-action. That's just fighting in a longer-term, more subtle way. That's like physical fighting, but, doing it differently. Just fighting with IQ and money and technology and stuff like that, you see? So, forming eugenic communes to fight the enemy, that is fighting. Unlike MGTOW, which is not really fighting. And even if MGTOW is fighting in terms of, maybe lowering the population's growth so that, less taxes come in. Okay, yeah, maybe that would work, but how long is it going to take until MGTOW is big enough for that to actually crash the U.S. government? Probably a long time, right? And by that time, we'll be utterly enslaved by technology, and then they can get rid of all the misandric laws, because they've already got us enslaved another way, and they don't need the misandric laws to keep us enslaved anymore. Not to mention the fact that, China could start sending hundreds of millions of people over here. Because it's got way too many people, right? It would probably love to send a few 100 million people over to the U.S., and what would that do? Then the government's got high IQ people who are higher in IQ than whites, and then those Chinese people, they actually have an own group preference. They'll be breeding with each other and making sure their IQs stay high, and then they'll be getting good jobs and then paying taxes. And then the government still isn't destroyed by economic, collapse because it's got all these high IQ Chinese people paying taxes now because of China sending a bunch of people over here to live and the U.S. being forced to do so because of China's greater geopolitical influence, So I really don't think MGTOW is a good way of, bringing down the government or anything. And even if it did, who says the tyranny won't be worse after the crash, forcing the government to get more efficient? And I just don't think you need a foundation there. Just like preserving MGTOW truth online through the crash is not going to necessarily make anything better after the crash. Because there was, censorship and tyranny before the crash. And who says people are going to have time when they're starving to death to, go online and read about MGTOW and stuff and learn how to use the mirror and whatnot? Like, who says they're going to be doing that? I mean, come on now. Things could get way worse after the crash. I mean, the elites could use the crash to consolidate and grow their power, get everybody to give up all their rights, just so that they can have, a little bit of bread every day. You know what I mean? Like, who says the tyranny won't get worse after the crash? I think it very well may, and probably will. Especially since most people don't even realize they're enslaved, so they don't even realize there's anything to fight. They'll just think, like, oh my gosh, a crash happened. Nobody could have predicted this. It's certainly not the government's fault. So why would they revolt against the government when they won't even think that the crash is the government's fault? You see what I mean? Who says that things will get better? Like the carpetbaggers, things will get worse after the crash. That's what's most likely. So even if MGTOW does bring about a crash before we're totally technologically enslaved, and they can, get rid of the misandric laws because they don't need them to enslave men anymore. Like, even if MGTOW brings about an economic collapse in the next 10 or 20 years or something, and that's quick enough, I don't know if it is quick enough, but even if that is quick enough and it brings about a collapse in the next 10 years, who says it won't increase the tyranny? So, you need an active strategy to deal with tyranny. You need an active strategy to increase IQ and wealth and freedom. If you're not, doing an active way of fighting, of bringing back freedom and prosperity and virtue and all the rest of it, then you're fucking up. It's that simple. And using the strategy of non-virtue, like being promiscuous as a way of, increasing societal instability to bring about a crash is retarded because you're creating bad bad habits that are just going to continue on during the collapse and then after the collapse, thus making it sure that society can never be rebuilt because the actions that brought it down in the first place are being continued, like promiscuity, which will result in a massive amount of incels, which will just lead to endless violence, you know? So then the country will never be rebuilt. You know what I mean? Like, what do you want? You want, like, endless hell in the US and not even a rebuilt tyrannical country, which are endless hell like that would probably be even worse than increased tyranny. You know, it'll be super dangerous and super inefficient and stuff. I mean, tyranny is inefficient, but it's more efficient than absolute chaos and death. You know, so I mean, how in the world does MGTOW make any sense? So, you know, it's just another case of people drawing the wrong conclusions from history and events and stuff. You can never see what would have happened if you'd done something else. Like I said before, you know, who knows that if we had done non-fighting as our strategy earlier, you know, 50 years earlier or something, who knows? It could have been even worse. But you can't see the alternate timeline that would have been even worse. So, you know, people assume, well, it would have been better if we had done that. You know, like, no, maybe what we did was not best, but maybe it certainly wasn't, you know, the worst thing that could have happened. You know, what we really should have done is done eugenic communes back when, you know, Frank Herbert was talking about eugenics decades and decades ago, 40 to 60 years ago. You know, if everybody had learned the lesson from his books and done that, we'd be living in a utopia right now because of everybody having 130, 140, 150 IQs. You know, then everybody would believe in sound money. Everybody would understand the importance of the First and Second Amendments, etc., etc. Technology would be way more advanced. We'd be living in a utopia of freedom and a utopia in terms of technological advancement. You know, a utopia in terms of morality probably too. You know, but you can never see the alternate timeline, so you never know, you know, if non-action would have actually been better or not. I contend that it wouldn't have been, probably. And it's definitely not the best option now. You know, the elites would have gotten rid of MGTOW when they got rid of all the pro-Hitler people. You know, if they really thought that MGTOW was fighting them. No, the elites correctly see that MGTOW is not a threat to them. It divides the people. And because it divides the people, and it increases the incel problem, and therefore increases the societal instability problem, which is a way of dividing the people, you know, gets everybody infighting, because it, you know, divides the people, it makes it so that the elites are unbeatable. The only way to beat the elites is to be united against them. And so anything which divides the public is something which guarantees the elites' victory. And MGTOW does divide the public by creating a greater incel problem because of the promiscuous MGTOW men and the men who in MGTOW who encourage promiscuity. Also, obviously, I'm not talking about the MGTOW monks. So, you know, MGTOW is, at least the whole branch of MGTOW, which is a huge branch of MGTOW, that advocates having sex with women and just pumping and dumping them and having a circle of fempets and all this, right? Like, this kind of thing is useful to the elites. It is useful to the side of tyranny. And that is why they have not gotten rid of MGTOW. That's why MGTOW is still allowed on YouTube. But like I was saying, you know, people assume all the time it would have been better if I had done this or this, but you never know. If you had done something else, it could have turned out better, but it could have also turned out much worse. You never know. So it's hard to learn the proper lessons from your actions because you never know what would have actually happened if you had done the other thing. You know, so as bad as things turned out, whether in your life or in the country or whatever, you don't know that things would have not been way, way worse if, you know, the other path had been taken. So I think it's flawed, logically flawed, to assume that, you know, non-fighting, non-action is an effective means of fighting the elites or that it's a better strategy than the strategies that we've used in the past. I mean, fighting for freedom and stuff like that. You know, fighting for virtue. This is anti-entropic, you know, fighting evil. You know, you're going against the stream. It's going to be hard. You have to do it all the time. You can never let up. You have to fight endlessly. You can't just swim upstream a little bit and then relax and then let the current take you downstream a long ways and then swim upstream again. No, you have to constantly swim upstream, never stopping so that you can get all the way up the river and make progress. You know what I mean? That's how it is. So if people are lazy or whatever, then yeah, entropy takes over and then bad things happen. But maybe the only reason we're this far is because we fought like hell already in the past. You know, other people, our ancestors fought like hell, and other people are still fighting. You know, progress is not an automatic thing. The people of today don't realize this. They take the Moore's law in computers, you know, the doubling of the transistors on the chip every 18 or 24 months or whatever. They take this for granted. They take all kinds of things for granted because progress is constantly being made. But progress is not an automatic thing. It's not a guaranteed thing. It's only constantly happening because people are constantly working to make it happen. The current culture of progress constantly happening, Moore's law, this kind of thing, it gives people the wrong idea. It gives stupid people the wrong idea. It gives them the idea that things automatically get better, but people need to realize that things automatically get worse, not better. Entropy is a real thing. If things are getting better, it's because people are thinking and working and researching and investing money in things, etc. Progress does not happen automatically. There's no Moore's law, genie, or fairy that makes chips just magically increase their transistor count every 2 years. That's not the case. You know what I mean? It's not like we can just sit back and watch the chips get better. No, there's people making it happen. So if we want freedom, we got to fight for it. We got to make it happen. It's not going to happen automatically. It's not even if we do the Buddhist or Taoist thing and do nothing. Maybe if a bunch of the people at the top, the critical people, the smart people, if the elites wipe out most people, then, maybe if these smart people decided to do nothing as a way of fighting the system, then we could possibly make some progress, could possibly win against the elites. But, isn't that just the same as saying, well, if most people were brave and red-pilled, we could overthrow the government? Yeah, we could, but they're not brave, and those who are red-pilled have no guts. So that's the problem. And I'm totally justified in saying they have no guts, because they don't even have the guts to make regular videos saying, let's overthrow the government one way or another. They don't even have that much guts. They don't even have the guts to open their mouth. So they really, truly have no guts. It's almost wishful thinking that the people at the top will start fighting by doing non-action. They want to instead keep living their nice, cushy lives, making $300,000 to $600,000 a year, traveling and having sex with lots of women. They don't want to fight the tyranny. They don't even see a problem. And even if they do, they're totally deluded about what the solution is. They think that their promiscuity and all the rest of it is part of the solution, rather than what it actually is, part of the problem. They're living in their ivory towers, these top MGTOW men are. So if you want to survive, you got to fight like hell, preferably with violence, to keep people out of your self-sufficient community. And you got to form such a community in the first place. But perhaps you don't even need violence, because if you well arm yourself, if you arm your commune really well, the government might see it as a threat. And then as long as you're still small, they may very well overthrow you, right? Just like they did with Waco. But if you are nonviolent for a long time, and you just view that as invest in loss, and you just conform to the government's bullshit as much as they make you conform, but outside of that, you don't conform at all. And you do eugenic breeding, and you just survive and make the commune richer and more technologically advanced and all the rest of it from the eugenic breeding, so that you have more and more and more smart people in the commune who can do subversive coding and who can get really good jobs outside the commune, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, $300,000 to $600,000 a year, and then they donate hundreds of thousands each year to the commune. Each person does, and then you got 100 people in the commune donating like $100,000 to $200,000 a year to the commune. The commune's bringing in massive money, and then it can put that in the form of it can use that it can save that in the form of gold or Bitcoin or something. Save it in brain wallets. So even if the government does confiscate the community's land and try to confiscate the money, it can't confiscate the money because the money's all in brain wallets. You see, and you just keep doing eugenic breeding like that, and then eventually the commune will be powerful enough to where it can massively stockpile weapons, and the government won't even dare to try to take it over. And then you can basically, at that point, be your own country, right? So this is how it is. And what's the government going to do at that point? If you got 1 million people in your gigantic commune with tons and tons of land, because of almost everybody in the new generation in the commune making massive money because they're super high IQs and good memories, and all of them donating $100,000 to $300,000 a year to the commune. Imagine that. Imagine the commune would be bringing in tens or hundreds of millions of dollars every year in profit. In savable money. And then in buying gold and silver and all kinds of other stuff with it, Bitcoin, whatever. I mean, imagine that. And then it buys tons and tons of weapons. And then it incorporates it. Some of the guys in the commune form their own corporation, because you can do this. I don't know how you do it, but I know it's possible. You can do this. You can form your own corporation and then get whatever licenses or whatever are required so that this corporation can, own advanced weapons. And then these advanced weapons are stuff that only the military and corporations that develop weapons for the government have licenses that they can, own that kind of weaponry and stuff. So then, some of the members of the commune own this, create those corporation like that, and get those licenses, go through the long, maybe expensive process of getting those licenses or whatever, and then they can like buy those super advanced weapons that normally are only owned by governments. And then like the U.S. government, and then the commune is super well armed legally, and then the government won't have any choice but to leave the commune totally alone, no matter what the commune does. And the commune can then use a legal process to get itself declared its own country, just like Rome is its own country. Rome is not actually part of Italy, from what I understand. It's actually its own country. The city of Rome is. So yeah, you could do that with a commune, and then get the commune to be super, super powerful that way, super, super rich, and then it becomes its own country. And it's super well armed at that point, and super populous and prosperous, and so the government can't mess with it. And by that time, you're bribing politicians legally by donating to super PACs, so you own the government, and you have a bunch of the commune members in the police department in high ranks, and in sheriff's departments and around the commune, and maybe you have a few senators or congressmen who are commune members, etc. So now you're all ensconced in the government as well. You've got your little dirty little fingers, not dirty fingers, but you got your fingers all in the government everywhere, just like the government's got its dirty little fingers everywhere. It's got its little double agents everywhere. Like you can put your little double agents everywhere into the government. You know what I mean? And then you own the government, basically, or you have a massive hold on the government, or you get advanced warning if the government is going to act against the commune. You know what I mean? And then the commune basically becomes invincible at that point. That is really the only truly effective way of overcoming the government without, revolutionary war that's super, super violent and super, super destructive, and not even necessarily a guarantee of victory. Now, if enough people fought the Revolutionary War, it could be a guaranteed victory, probably. But of course, they just raise up a bunch of the sheeple to fight against us. But of course, I think this would be much less effective than in the past, because in the past, men had high testosterone. Men don't these days, because testosterone's been going down like 1 or 1.5% every year. So every generation has less testosterone than the one before, significantly less. And the apathy and the nihilism and not belief in God and the cynicism about government. So I think very few people would fight on the government's side. So if you got, like 20, 30% of the population, fighting the government, I think it would be an easy win. But of course, red-pilling that many people and getting that many people that brave to fight a violent revolutionary war against the government, I think that is very, very difficult to accomplish. And so I think that if people are going to overthrow the government, I really think the best option is the commune's option, for real. And I really think it's the only way to win. It's the only way to win. Eugenic communes. If you think there's a better way to win, then make your own videos, and I'd love to hear your solutions. And it's got to be a comprehensive solution that takes everything into account, like I'm doing here, and not just in this video. I mean, like in all my other videos and everything. And by the way, since I'll probably put this video out today, well, obviously when it gets released, today will be today, but today is Sunday, December 29th. I'll probably put this video out today. I also want to say that I had to delete, I was basically forced to delete my first and second channels, unfortunately. I got 2 strikes on my first channel, so I had to delete it because I wasn't anywhere close. I got 2 strikes in like less than a month. So, it takes 3 months for a strike to go away, so I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I could get a 3rd strike any second, and definitely I'd get a 3rd strike if I left my videos up for another, 2 months. So I was like, oh yeah, this channel will definitely get deleted, and then all my channels will get deleted, and I'll be permanently banned from making any new channels on YouTube if I don't delete my channel. So if my channel's going to get deleted anyway, I may as well be the one to delete it, and therefore I can preserve my other 2 channels and my ability to make new channels in the future. And then my second channel got a 2nd strike. I was like, okay, gotta delete that one too, unfortunately. So, here I am on my 3rd channel. Because my other channels are linked to my first one, I wasn't really able to delete it. I deleted it, but then it kind of forced me to make a new account, basically on top of the old one, it seems, with no videos and no subscribers and anything. So I called that Redshift 4, and that will probably be my new one if I have to get rid of my 3rd channel, but I don't even have 1 strike on my 3rd channel yet. So I'm going to keep on using my 3rd channel until I am forced to delete that one too. Although I'm going to try and be more careful with my language. Like if I do a video about XXers in the workforce, I'm going to call them XXers instead of the gender that they are, because um, I want to be more careful with my language now so that I can avoid getting strikes. So, yeah, that's kind of what's been going on with my first and second channel and whatnot. Um, yeah, I mean, you don't have to spread the word about this third channel. Make your own channel. Copy. I don't care if you copy my content. Copy my content as identically as you want to. Just try and make it maybe funnier if you're funny. So make your own channels. If you want to make this channel bigger, instead of recommending this channel to other people, make your own videos and make them, if you want to, about, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can make your videos about stuff that I talk about, and then mention me and say this is a video where I mention the same things that Redshift mentions, and then you can make the video with visuals and stuff. You know what I mean? If your video has some nice visuals and or you're funny, then you can spread these ideas much farther. I'm like the seed. This channel is like a seed where I come up with the ideas and the insights and I put it out there, but no one listens to me. So it's up to all you guys who understand what I'm saying and who agree with me. It's up to all of you guys to make your own videos about these same topics if you agree with me, and then make those videos funnier and put visuals on them and make it tighter, the script or whatever, and just make it better. Put the same type of stuff out there, but make it better so that, the video gets way, way more views and your channel gets way more subscribers and views than I ever could. And then it'll be in a situation where you're influencing people, and then maybe they spread the idea too. And then, if they're all referred back to me, then my channel would get more subscribers. But I don't even really care if I get more subscribers, as long as the ideas are getting out there. Like, if you get the ideas out there, then that's good enough. You know what I mean? Even if I'm the seed and you guys are the water and the sunshine that grows the seed, and you guys end up being the stalk and the leaves, and then everybody else gets the truth because of that stalk and those leaves creating a flower or something with seeds, and then those seeds scatter, and then they grow into plants of their own, and then everybody in the U.S. Understands that eugenic communes are the only way, and everybody understands that promiscuity increases the incel problem, and so therefore MGTOW is going to be increasing gynocentrism going forward, not decreasing it. And getting people to understand that the government tyranny could increase after the crash, not decrease, and getting them to understand that all the stuff that I talk about. You know what I mean? Like, it's up to you guys to spread these ideas, not me, because I'm doing my best here, but I'm not a funny person, and people love entertainment, which is why TFM's channel is so big. So if you're funny, make a video with these same ideas, but make it funny, and then you'll be doing a tremendous service for the world, even if there's nothing original in your content. If it's just my same old ideas rehashed, but you make it a better video that actually gets a lot of views, then you will have done something tremendously important for humanity in spreading these ideas. If you get 1,000 views or 5,000 views on each of your videos, that'll be huge service to humanity. So do your part and make some videos. And I don't delete comments. I think I don't get comments anymore because of my increasingly fucked up computer and whatnot. But so I'm not deleting the comments, but hardly any ever show up anymore. But even if they were showing up, I would be tempted to delete all negative comments, because it's like, don't leave a comment if you're going to leave a negative comment. If you got something critical to say, something unkind to say or something, or you disagree with me, then make your own channel. Make your own videos. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't complain in the comment section. Make a video and say those same things in your own video. You know what I mean? Like, put your money where your mouth is. So, yeah, that's what I had to say in this video. Hopefully people like this video. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it. Hit the thumbs down button if you hated it. Peace trucks.